So before I get into the key of the pyramid, there's a few other things I just want to mention, because it's really not that long of a text. It's like 8 pages. But a few other things I have printed out. I don't think I'll get to this because it's so long. Maybe. I wish they would, or actually publish this. The Amalantra working. It's not really edited very well, so I edited it myself. Printed it out page by page, so I could actually read it without scrolling through it. And so that's one. It took a whole binder just to do. Here's some other stuff from a long time ago. This was like Hebrew alphabet. I was like trying to memorize all this stuff in high school, walking to school and in class. Yeah, these are all just various charts and whatnot. What is this one? This is stuff from that Knocked Cabaret website, which I found important, so I printed it out. And even other interviews with Marilyn Manson, because he's pretty knowledgeable about a lot of things, like him and David Duchovny for the Area 51 game. King Kill 33, the whole thing, since in apocalypse culture it's only like a part of it. Some Bible Wheel stuff. Yeah, pretty much everything that's important I've printed out. There's still a lot I need to print out though, but here's all Jack Parsons' writings, and letters to Marjorie Cameron and Appreciation, John Dee's stuff. Now I actually have the Hieroglyphic Monad in hardcover. Some other various shit, Terrence McKenna and DMT. Yeah, I extracted DMT when I was 17, and I didn't know what to expect other than just what I had heard from listening to Terrence McKenna and a few other people, and it worked. And I had to like jump into bed and just lay down and let it happen. And actually, the first time, I swear, Terrence McKenna, I heard his voice guiding me through. And it may have been just all the times I've listened to him, but here's my blog posts I've actually printed out. And this is my Lamb book. It's all the Lamb articles that I can find. The Lamb Statement, The Mysteries of Lamb, which I have 2 of those on it today. The Lamb Statement, Lamb the Gateway, the Lamb Serpent said Hana, Iridescent Undulations in the Sacred Fire, the Lamb Serpent said Hana at group level, Liber 311 or Liber Omanoia, some notes on an extraterrestrial entity, the Enochian Apocalypse by Donald Tyson, Why Are They Here by Donald Michael Craig, Did Magicians Cause UFO Sightings, Aleister Crowley and the Lamb Statement, Aleister Crowley's Lamb and Little Gray Men, A Striking Resemblance, Demons in Aliens Clothing, a Kabbalistic Analysis of Esoterrestrials, The Gnostic Theory of Alien Intrusion, Karanzan, the Lord of Dispersion, and then, yeah, the Krill Reports. A friend told me about this, again, a long time ago in like 9th or 10th grade. And I read it like fucking non-stop at school when I was supposed to be doing other stuff. And certain things in it stuck in my mind. And then, of course, whenever I read, I think it was Outer Gateways, or Beyond the Mauve Zone, and Kenneth Grant mentions the Chronicles of Krill Nia, and the whole formula of Krill Nia being 311, which has a lot to do with the Qliphoth and the connection with whatever the gray aliens may be. And again, like the Ninth Arch mentions the way of the gray ones, and it implies that Lamb is a gray alien, or at least associated. And again, the Ether Ship Mystery and its Solution by Med Lane. That goes into some like Kabbalistic analysis of whatever the ether ships are, which again, the Ninth Arch also talks about. So yeah, there's a lot of other stuff I'm sure about Lamb that I haven't even found yet, but and this is various Fritter Achad things primarily, but of course I've also got the OAI Manifesto by Don Carr. He actually sent me this, Liber Andana, or Liber 107, and it talks all about the zero and the egg and the diamond, and it's from like 1981 or 82 or 83, pretty much that time period, and it goes to show how much they even were tapping into the 107, though a lot of it still has yet to... I think there's still a lot yet to even unravel, just by the looks of things. Like, I get what I call receptions or transmissions like daily. This document from The Secret Rituals of the Men in Black, the central password, the Dream of H1331, is important because I found this after I found my name is 1331 and what all that connects with. You have to just jump. Let's see. The Treasure House of Achad, Freedom, Thinking Backwards, Belief versus Knowledge, Mirrors of Life, Untitled Letter, The Conjuration of Kronos, Nothing, Liber Q&A or 151, De Mysterious Rose Rube et Ore Crucius. Liber 31, of course I have that in physical or paperback. The Key of It All. This is a cool document too. I recommend that. Pretty much all of these. Liber Causus Astrum Vel, whatever that is, 100 and... This text is about Frater Achad. And then the Dodecahedral Universe by Iona Miller. That's actually, what was his name? Richard Allen Miller's ex-wife. And I didn't know that when I was so, like, slowly becoming familiar with both of their work, and then I listened to a lot of his like interviews, and that's when he mentioned that. But yeah, so the whole Frater Achad mentions the dodecahedron and the anatomy of the body of God, so that's why that's significant. And then this is kind of unrelated, but I'll get to it whenever it comes up. I printed out pretty much all the patents and main documents on basically mind control and electronic weaponry, patents involving sending and receiving signals from the brain in various formats and subliminal bullshit. There's a lot more than I can even print out though, but at least I have the main things. And yeah, so let's get to the Key of the Pyramid if I still have any storage left or battery life. Key to the Pyramid, or Key to Pyramid. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Each horizontal series of subjects, which is, it's referring to this. This is the pyramid, and the key to it is that document. And see, the first step is Thelema, magic, mysticism, Hinduism, Buddhism, mythology, Gnosticism, Kabbalah, and Egyptian tradition. And it gets more technical. The 13 holy books, theory of magical instruments, study of mystical modes, systems of yoga and theory, Buddhist metaphysics and Lamaism, literature of Obeah and witchcraft, the Sephiroth, the Draconian tradition of Egypt, elementary astral theory, construction of magical instruments, Tattva meditation, Buddhist meditation, paths of tree and 22 atus of Thoth, construction of tree and meditation, analysis of god forms and symbols, building of shrine, devotion to chosen deity, yantra construction, pantycle of cosmos, rose cross symbolism, 9 months performance of chosen practice, astral projection, Liber had and Liber knew, Viparita, point of view, intellectual presentation, assumption of God forms with mantra, rising on the plains, alchemy and tantra, self-devised rites, meditation, the astral temple, self-sustained universe, trance, consecration and radiation, and inward projection of the light. And then this is, of course, the top degree. It's like symbolic of the 9th degree. And so yeah, just keep that in mind, system of degrees. And Kenneth Grant obviously had that whole thing with the OTO and all that. And if you look through his work, to me, I think that he is the true, representative of the Lima, in the sense that the actual OTO, they haven't even kept up with the reprinting of Crowley's books, which are, the main job, and they haven't contributed anything more. Like, they haven't taken it further while, incorporating the old and tying further, understanding the even more the ancient, like the Egyptian and whatnot. And, Kenneth Grant is the only person to have done that. Or at least that's what I've found. I haven't seen. If they are, they're doing it in complete secret, and in which case that's not really doing anything. But so yeah, despite the fact that I know Kenneth Grant is not the true or the official, or wasn't. I know he's dead now, but I know that the OTO was upset with him and whatnot. But again, they just want the money and the control. I don't think they want anyone to actually succeed or progress, because again, they would see that, well, what do I need them for other than just like ego boosting and a sense of camaraderie or whatever, which those people are really nothing to be proud of. But so yeah, each horizontal series of subjects represents 1 degree. Those subjects marked with the cross X in the following resume are compulsory, while the ones not so marked may be undertaken according to the choice of the candidate. But he must take 1 subject in addition to those marked with crosses. This applies to all degrees below the 7th. Alright, so this is post 20. It's pretty much a 0 or an egg, both. And I included the pyramid of initiation, or the system of degrees, that Kenneth Grant has in Hecate's Fountain, obviously. And so I started reading that, but I don't want my hands being all shaky, so I'll just read it here. But the key of the pyramid, or key to the pyramid. The student is expected to read thoroughly on all the subjects laid down and to choose his own books and authorities. No official books are given him in this degree. He is expected to ground himself in his own way in the preliminary stages of his study. He may apply for an examination in these subjects at any time, and if successful, he is admitted to the next degree. Brief resume, of course, to be adopted by a candidate. Thelema, study the works of Aleister Crowley. Magic, study the works of Barrett, Levi, Blavatsky, and such like authorities. Mysticism, study the works and lives of the famous mystics, Western and Eastern. Hinduism, study the standard works on the subject. Mythology, study the standard works on the subject. Buddhism, study the standard works on the subject. Gnosticism, study the main works of G.R.S. Med, Richard Payne Knight, Thomas Inman, General Forlong, etc. Kabbalah, study the works of MacGregor Mathers, William Wynne Westcott, Arthur Edward Waite. And Egyptian tradition, study in particular the Egyptian ritual or Book of the Dead. And the second degree says, the second degree constitutes a more specialized and intensive course in the previously examined subjects. The 13 Holy Books. These constitute the Class A publications of the AA, of which not so much as the style of a letter may be changed. The student must thoroughly acquaint himself with the contents of these books, meditating constantly upon their inner significance. This is the intuitive approach. Study of the nature of magical instruments. Textbooks, the Equinox, Book 4, Part 2, and certain manuscripts. The nature of the symbolism attached to the various magical implement, manner of construction, uses, and direction. The theoretical aspect of the magician's armory. This is the symbolic approach. Study of mystical modes. Textbooks, the Equinox, Book 4, Part 1, and others. The study of the details and exercises involved in the major schools of mysticism, East and West. This is the mystical approach. Systems of Yoga Theory. Textbooks, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Shiva Samhita, Works on Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, etc., etc., etc. The student must acquaint himself with the various systems of yoga, especially mastering the technical terms involved in endeavoring to master the inner significance of the teachings expounded. This is the scientific approach. Buddhist metaphysics, or Lamaism, textbooks, the translation of Lama Kazi Dawa Samdup, Arthur Avalon, Evans Wentz, D.T. Suzuki, the Equinox, and others. A specialized study of Buddhism with particular reference to Lamaist, Mahayana, and Zen aspects thereof. This is the mental approach. The literature of Obeah and witchcraft. Textbooks, too many to be enumerated. The student must make an attempt to probe beneath the surface of the literature he is instructed to examine, and to formulate his own ideas as to the true nature of the subject. He must acquaint himself with the theory of the Qliphoth, Goetic magic, Obeah in particular with the lunar aspect of ancient rites and ceremonies. This is the emotional approach. The Sephiroth. Textbooks, 777 and many others. The student must acquaint himself perfectly with the nature of the Sephiroth and commit the main ideas associated therewith to memory. Note, he will already have committed the Hebrew alphabet and numerical valuation of the letters to memory in the previous degree. This is the intellectual approach. The Draconian tradition. Textbooks, the work of Gerald Massey and others. Particular emphasis is laid on the stellar mythos in this degree. The student must master the subject thoroughly, being proficient in his ability to resolve symbols into their elements by taking them through the various mythological layers. This is the mythical approach. Third degree. Elementary astral theory. The student must acquaint himself with the theory of the astral plane, its laws, conditions, and constitution. A theoretical test is given. Construction of magical instruments. The student is taught how to construct his armory. The proper making of these weapons constitutes a test of this degree. Tattva meditation. The student makes a set of tattvas and meditates upon each, submitting his record of meditations to his superior at stated intervals. Success in these meditations constitutes a test of this degree. A certain standard of perfection has to be attained. Buddhist meditation. The student may adopt any single Buddhist meditation, such as those listed in 777, Mahasatipatthana, Librathesharb, and others, and satisfy his superior of his proficiency therein before proceeding to the next degree. The 22 Atu of thought in relation to the paths of the Tree of Life. Meditation on each of these hieroglyphs with a careful record of same must be accomplished in this degree. The Tree of Life must be drawn, construction of the tree and meditation thereon. The Tree of Life must be drawn according to correct proportions. The Tree of Life must be drawn according to correct proportions, and colored according to the attributions given in 777. A series of meditations on various aspects of the tree, if successfully accomplished and recorded, passes the student to the next degree. Analysis of God forms and symbols. The student is tested intellectually in the matter of symbolism. If he is further required to analyze certain given God forms with and he is further required to analyze certain given God forms with a view to unveiling the nature and direction of the energies they symbolize, and the magical or mystical formula they conceal. A general examination, part practical, part theoretical, is now undergone before the student is admitted to the fourth degree. Fourth degree, building of shrine. A shrine must be conceived and built for the worship of the chosen deity. See next section. And this construction must satisfy all requirements demanded by the nature of that chosen deity. Devotion to chosen deity for 9 lunar months. Following the technique described in Liber 175, the student must select a deity and worship same in some manner approved by a superior for 9 lunar months. Yantra construction. The student is trained in the construction of certain yantras and taught the manner in which these represent certain aspects of the psychophysical organism. He is tested in the construction of 3 such yantras, giving full explanations thereof, before being admitted to the next degree. Pantacle of Cosmos. The student must construct a pantacle which represents his conception of the universal interplay of forces. Examples of such pantacles may be seen in certain numbers of the equinox, as in other textbooks of the subject. The pantacle must enshrine the viewpoint as in complete a form as is possible to the student at this stage of his development. This pantacle may be built, drawn, painted, found, or it may be in some form such as is usually considered to be without the pale of a pantacle as such. It may, for instance, be a certain blending of essences, a combination of fragrances, a series of sounds, or an elaborate system of geometry. But whatever it be, it must express entirely the nature of the interplay of cosmic forces as seen by the student, and he must be able to comment thereon in a way entirely satisfactory to any person of high intelligence. Rose-cross symbolism. The student is instructed in and examined in the formulae of the rosy cross, together with other symbols of subsidiary or cognate nature. Performance for 9 lunar months of one chosen practice. The student may select any one practice from the many he has studied and perform same for 9 lunar months, submitting his record every month for comment and advice. Proficiency in such performances enables him to pass to the next degree. 5th degree, astral projection. The student begins to exteriorize his body of light and is instructed into the technique of elementary astral locomotion. Note, this practice is only suited to a particular type of candidate. This is to be decided by the superior in charge. The practice of Liber Nu, Liber Had, or both. Proficiency must be attained in the practice of the above-mentioned exercises. In this degree, the candidate is given special instruction in matters concerning Thelema. Viparita. The student must select something to which he has genuine aversion and marry himself thereto in a manner determined by the nature of the object he selects and the wisdom of his superior enjoins. The practice is explained in Liber Aleph, as well as in certain tantric instructions of which the student is apprised. Point of view, intellectual presentation. One of the tasks of this degree is to prepare a thesis setting forth the magical point of view acquired by the student so far. This must be in the nature of a very full statement, and he must be passed by a superior before he is admitted to the 6th degree. Assumptions of God forms with mantra. The chosen deity of the previous degree may be the main God form assumed, and his mantra the main mantra, but the student must satisfy his superior that he is equally proficient in other such assumptions before he is allowed to progress. 6th degree, rising on the planes. The student learns how to deal with the astral plane and its entities. He is tested in the invocation of elementals in the Kabbalistic analysis of their names, symbols, or numbers. Alchemy and Tantra. The student is given instruction in the more esoteric teachings of the Tantras, with emphasis on the Shakta Tantra Shastra approach, the alchemical significance of the Atu of Thoth, and the psychosomatic theories of the ancients concerning transmutations. He is tested intellectually in these matters before proceeding further. Self-devised rites. The student is tested in his ability to devise certain rituals, the nature of which depends upon bhava and other things, and to perform such rituals with careful recordings of results achieved. The object of such rituals must be any of the following: A. Illumination as to the higher nature of the aspirant, B. Illumination with regard to the chosen deity, or C. Illumination with regard to a chosen doctrine. Yet this object must be subservient to the greater object of achieving illumination upon the nature of Nuit, Hadit, and Rahur Kuit. Meditation. This meditation is of a higher type than that undergone in the third degree, and involves a full comprehension of the doctrine of Shunyata, or Sunyata, the void. A general examination must now be passed before the student is admitted to the seventh degree, which girdles the sovereign sanctuary of the Gnosis. Seventh degree. Astral temple. The construction of a temple or retreat upon the astral plane and ability to function therein with perfect ease is the task of this degree. Self-sustained universe. The student is instructed in a certain secret symbolism as well as in the true meaning of the formula 0 equals 2, which is the basic doctrine of Liber AL vel Legis. He has to prepare a treatise wherein he sets forth that certain apprehension of identity betwixt the within and the without, describing the illumination in great detail, and showing how the self-sustained universe embraces the twin concepts of Nuit and Hadit, resolving them into a higher unity that admits of no designation, yet which may be symbolically shadowed forth in a certain manner of which the student will be cognizant. Trance. The student must show unmistakable indications of being able to enter into and out of certain types of trance at will, and to derive certain benefits therefrom. The nature of this section is such as cannot be easily communicated in a paper such as this, which is a general survey of the order, and indeed it is not necessary that it be explained, since the candidate to this degree will be well aware of what is implied in this matter. Eighth degree. Consecration and radiation. The secret manner of consecration is made known to the candidate in the eighth degree, as well as the mode of radiating the magical light, that the slightest impulse of his will may burst into flame of power and achieve its natural end. The methods of energized enthusiasm are expounded, and the student is tested in his power to consecrate talismans and himself also, his signal of success being perfect accomplishment of the operation devised for him by a superior. The secrets of subtle magnetism, of attraction and repulsion, are unveiled to him, and he prepares himself in a certain subtle manner for his great initiation into the ninth degree. Inward projection of the light. A method of becoming one with the chosen deity, higher angel, or any idea whatsoever is taught the candidate of the eighth degree, and he learns the subtle nature of contacting and linking himself with the inhabitants of the inner planes, as well as being initiated into the special interpretation of the mystery of love as expounded in the holy books of Thelema. He mystically prepares himself for his final initiation in this order. Ninth degree. This degree is the summit of the pyramid, the inner shrine of the sovereign sanctuary of the Gnosis, whose outer court girdles the seventh degree. We say nothing of the nature of this great mystery, nor of the nature of that mighty magic which is taught therein. Attaining this degree, the student is greeted and made welcome as a perfect master of the Gnostic rite, master magician, holder of the scepter of power, and many other things designating the attainment of that secret so jealously guarded down the age-long corridors of time. A certain subtle symbol is the sign of this grade, the which symbol is at least dissolved in the clear light of pure bliss. Note: the foregoing system of degrees will be seen to differ from the system of degrees detailed in the Blue Equinox, the which latter system does not obtain where the British branch of the order is concerned. This amends the first paragraph of the manifesto of the British branch of the order. As will be seen from the present scheme of degrees, in actual fact the student is admitted to the second degree when he has satisfied the officer or officers of the order whom he first contacts that he is sufficiently well grounded in the theory of magical matters, comparative religion, and so on, to deserve of admittance. The first degree, therefore, is never actually bestowed upon a candidate, his period of worldly probation corresponding thereto. Before being admitted formally to the second degree, he is required to sign an oath of fealty to the order, and at some later stage in his progress, he has to sign a further pledge, which is in the nature of a vow of holy obedience to the superior set over him. Other pledge forms are submitted for his signature at certain periods and at certain stages of his progress. Failure to comply with oaths thus solemnly taken and duly witnessed by the officers of the order is ensured by immediate degradation in the case of trivial offenses and immediate expulsion in those of grave offenses, with no possibility of reinstatement under any conditions whatsoever. A candidate can be suspended pending inquiry by any member of the sovereign sanctuary who has reason to suspect any of dubious behavior, but the final judgment of the Grand Master settles all questions arising from such action. Note also that although voluntary contributions are welcome, membership of the OTO involves no financial obligations. The order is designed solely with the purpose of training individuals in an individual manner to master the theory and practice of magic and mysticism, with no other purpose than that they should be able to help others in their turn along the pathway of spiritual unfoldment. It is not the impecunious that are turned aside, but the ignorant who are steadfast in their ignorance, either through laziness or any other factor, for it is ignorance we seek to dissolve, that the light of the highest bliss may come to those who seek either by knowledge or love to win to its beauty and rapture. All applicants for membership must be over 21 years of age and in good mental and bodily health. As many particulars as possible should be given in order to assist in the selection of a superior best suited to the task of training the candidate. Love is the law, love under will. Vernal Equinox, 1952, Freddie Ray Ossick, 9th degree OTO, Kenneth Grant. So, I read that because, again, it just, it needs to be, gone over. These are the general outlines, or pretty much the outlines of what, the work to be done. As far as the Typhonian or OTO now, or the Typhonian order, which I guess is still around. The problem I think about all of this is that who's to determine the superior and whether they are actually even superior? Because again, you'd be surprised at how much supposed authorities on the subject, people who've been around, people who've actually paid for the degrees and whatnot, don't know. And so, for me at least, I was better off to do a lot of things on my own. And that's the case for most people, I guess. But that's the thing. Usually, if you're any good with whatever it is, intelligence and just knowledge and progress and whatnot, you will eventually surpass your guru or superior or master or whatever, if they're a good teacher too. So my views on, again, any sort of order, while group work and whatnot can be beneficial, and yes, it's good to realize, and to realize that you have a lot of work to do. That's what gurus can help teach you. But it's also important to be aware of the fact that people will use your naivety and your need for affirmation or authority or whatever, or guidance or structure, and they'll use that for their benefit. So, these are just some topics basically he gives to study and practice in, and generally, you'll, I don't know why I keep going back to it, but you'll probably, if you're interested in any of this stuff and genuinely interested, you will have many teachers, and some of even the people who you disagree with or you'll still learn from, obviously. They're some of the best teachers. And there's obviously Liber 489, which Crowley gives all the degrees and whatnot. The problem with any of the degree grade systems is they're not 100% like definite. Like you could, I mean, I have had properties or knowledge or whatever of certain higher grades, um, than where I would be considered if it was official. So those things are kind of just beside the point, I guess. Like the grades and degrees and whatnot, and say it's like with masonry, people, the masons really, they just, a lot of times people join masonry or the group to, for the official like credibility, to say, oh, I'm a mason. They needed to be taught, and that was it. Like it's like with people who go to college. I'm not against college. I would go if I could, if I had the money and the time and the all the shit sorted out. But the problem with people who do go to college is they tend to stop there once they're done and think, oh, that's all I had to know. That's all, and to me, that's just a sad state of affairs, that the academic community, the scientific community is so stagnant, I guess, and like beset with so much inertia. And that, I guess, leads into my skepticism of, and my questioning of mainstream science, I guess you could call it, because everyone wants, that's the thing, is people being so dependent on authorities and media and whatnot, and basically discoveries even to come out, instead of working on their own and trying to us all work together, in being so dependent on the answers or the truth or the cures or the technology. Well, you're going to be sold out. Like, you're going to be lied to, you're going to be fucked over until you can do it yourself. And that's kind of goes with this whole mystical order thing, is like, unless you can do it yourself, you're probably going to be used. So unfortunately, that's with even some of the nicer orders or groups, like even mainstream Christianity. Most of those churches and the flocks or congregations, it's all a facade. It's all external. It's all like, to feel good. But when it comes to the deeper things and the real change, it's all in avoidance of that. And I know I'm being very critical. That is critical, but it's just, I'm at peace with it, in the sense that I understand there's certain people, again, people have their own periods of growth and their own needs and wants and whatnot. And it's like Crowley says in Liber Libre, like, how do you know you wouldn't be any different if you were in the same position? And well, I don't know. I look at my other family members, other friends, and I think, what did put me in such a different position? I guess it is just internal, character type things. But I don't know. The whole thing about 20 is obviously Yod spelled out, and it's Yod is 10, but 20 Yod means basically, well, Kaf means I think a palm. Yod means a hand, and from Yod, there's this like Hebrew legend about all the whole alphabet and creation itself being created from the Yod, and the Yod is supposed to be like a flame. It looks kind of like a little flame. And then obviously the tarot card for Yod is the Hermit, and he's holding a lamp. And obviously the Hermit, or recluse, being alone, is symbolic of that inner light, the lamp or the Yod. And Yod, again, being the hand, is like the creation, the creative faculty, and what separates man, I guess, from the other animals is not just our opposable thumbs, but our ability to create, kind of like in a godlike way. So I was going to read chapter 20, or the thing about 20 and the Key of Destiny. And I know I skipped over all the other chapters, but you'll just have to go read them on your own time. I'm reading this for pretty much lack of anything else to talk about in this post. But it's good information. 20. I read, I think, 18 and 19 already, so 20, the dispenser of wisdom. If thou wouldst have that stream of hard-earned knowledge, of wisdom heaven-born, remain sweet running waters, thou shouldst not leave it to become a stagnant pond. No, if of Amitabha, the boundless age, thou wouldst become co-worker, then thou must shed the light acquired, like to the bodhisattvas twain, upon the span of all three worlds. The Voice of the Silence, Blavatsky. God operates by his works, in heaven by angels, and on earth by men. Eliphas Levi. The number 20 is composed of 2 complete cycles of 10, each containing the experience of the 9 digits. But unlike 10, which has the 1 or divine standing at the right hand of the circle of unmanifested forces, in 20 we find 2, or the number of the mundane or differentiation. Here, the one life has become thoroughly materialized. It has not only entered into matter, but has evolved through it until man, the highest expression of duality, male and female, has realized his position and responsibility and has completed his cycle. Hence, in this number, he stands as the representative of God to all below him. In 20, therefore, we must consider man as God's ambassador, responsible for his works, and also responsible to God for the kingdoms and inhabitants of earth entrusted to him. In short, man has now become as one of us, the Elohim. In this present state of the world, it is only here and there during the ages who has reached this stage of attainment, yet there has never been an age which has not produced its initiates. And since the truth is recognized that power belongs to him who knows, so it is equally true that he who knows is responsible, in exact proportion to the amount of his knowledge. For the use he makes of his power for personal responsibilities cannot be evaded if true progress is to be attained. Therefore, the initiate is one who, by toil, self-sacrifice, and suffering, has sought out the hidden mysteries of life, and has, like Job, stood face to face with the Lord, the great law which spoke out of the whirlwind, and at his command, "Gird up thy loins now like a man, and I will demand of thee, and declare thou unto me," has fearlessly answered, "Here am I." Such an one has never been wanting in any age of the world, and in the early days of mankind, such initiates were the rulers of mankind. And as mankind advanced in intellectual knowledge, the greatest of all mysteries was given to all who could receive it, namely, the truth that God dwelt in man, be he ever so seemingly separated from God, that mankind are not separated atoms of matter driven helplessly hither and thither, nor are they children to be ruled and governed by the elder brothers of the race, but are now responsible beings raised from the one divine light, the God of the spiritual Son. The only begotten Son of the Father, incarnate and in the flesh, has a dwelling place within each soul. Hence, through this divine indwelling Christ, each man and woman has the power of reaching to the fullness of the Father. This doctrine has been universally taught by the wise men of all ages. Once man had reached the stage of individual responsibility, the close personal guidance given him in his child stage has little by little been superseded by the guidance from within. When this stage is reached, he must begin to recognize the God power within and learn to trust it as a sure guide and pathway to knowledge, and to not look without to any superhuman guidance. Only thus will the mass of mankind reach the step symbolized by number 20, for its primal meaning is that God has fully clothed himself in man. The Word has been made flesh and dwells among us, not only in the great divine avatar Jesus, whose life story was given us as an example of what each soul must attain, but God has touched the physical plane in each man. From this point on, number 2 must be looked upon not as the number of separation or departure from the one, but as made up of 2 ones, God and man united in one figure. Number 20 must also be considered from the aspect of the knowledge of good and evil. And it just popped into my mind that this connection, therefore, since doth, in its lower form, deleth, aleph, teth, hey, is 20, And I was thinking about, well, why is Doth 20? I just didn't see a connection until slowly I realized, well, it's Yod, so it's that reflection again of the light. But then it's also, I guess, it makes me think of 11 as Doth. It's like an amplification of the 11. The two tens, really, the Malkuth dueled. But so in that whole way, Doth in 20 actually kind of does make sense. Number 20 must also be considered from the aspect of the knowledge of good and evil. But in 20, having passed 2 cycles of 10, it stands for one who has eaten of the tree of good and evil, and has become one of the Elohim, since hence has the power to walk either in the right-hand path or the left according to his own will. But this he now does consciously, not ignorantly as before. The law of the physical plane is duality. Hence the number 2, or the God-man, now stands where the 1 stood in the first cycle. Throughout the whole mystic literature of the ancient world, we detect the same idea of spiritual esotericism, that the personal God exists within, nowhere outside, the worshipper. That personal deity is no vain breath or a fiction, but an immortal entity, the initiator of the initiates, now that the heavenly or celestial initiators of primitive humanity are no longer among us. Note well that this does not say that there is no manifestation of God outside of man, but no personal God outside. This immortal entity spoken of is the ray of God, which has become the Father in heaven, or personal God of each man and woman, just as surely as a ray of light is an individualized expression of the sun. Yet just as the ray of sunshine has become embodied in a flower or fruit, so the immortal ray of God has become flesh of our flesh, is dwelling within each soul, in fact is the real or divine self of each one. Hence, only as we listen, obey, and identify ourselves with this divine incarnate ray can we, like the flower or fruit, unfold our perfect pattern or become an initiate. This, however, does not postulate that we are gods now at the present stage of our development, except potentially. We are only such when we demonstrate that the lower self has ceased to be the governing power, and the God in us sits on his throne and rules over lives in the sight of men. Only this incarnate God power can initiate us into all mysteries of being and make us one with all that is, so we can rule firstly ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our forces, then rule the forces of nature. Only when we have touched within ourselves the source of all forces in nature can we open the book of life, read and understand its concealed mysteries, converse with the bee and ant, and understand the music of the spheres. And I was just literally talking about the language of the bees. Therefore, to the majority of students, 20 must stand as a great ultimate possibility, yet it must point to a positive fact, i.e., that they have within them the power of the Christ, that through this power of the Christ they can conquer, beginning with the little things that come to them day by day, realizing that mastery is a growth, that a fault once mastered never has to be mastered again, but it is stored up as a power and lends its aid to master the next difficulty. A godlike quality such as love, compassion, or unselfishness, once built into our character, has strengthened the expression of our God nature just that much more and has given us power to attain a new step. But this number must also remind us that being a human or mundane number, it comes under the law of duality, hence must have within it the two opposites. Since it stands at the right hand of the circle of unmanifested potentiality, thus 20, there must be 2 ways in which this circle can be manifested, either good or bad, black or white. Well, and the circle itself symbolizes, again, that upper, higher part, and then the descent. And that's a huge symbolism in the circle when you look at it, like, in regards to, like, Jung and just really any symbolism, but Jung especially kind of incorporates that dark side or the shadow part of initiation. Hence 20 stands for free will, or man with his developed will and the power to use it in deciding which path he shall tread, for this new circle is as yet unmanifested. Kabbalistically, number 20 is called the breaker of the elements, i.e. one who has separated the elements and has gained control over them. According to Kabbalistic teachings, and I think, 5 times 4? Yeah, 5 times 4, so it's like the 4 elements dominated by the 5, the 5th. According to Kabbalistic teachings, each soul has two angels, a good and an evil one. From Ruach, reason, and Nefesh, passion. Influenced by the good aspirations of Neshama, proceeds Michael, the good angel of the soul. From Nefesh, dominating Ruach, and uninfluenced by the good aspirations of Neshama, proceeds Samael, the evil angel of the soul, or the poison of God. Thus, the duality of man is explained. Reason controlling the passions creates a good angel Michael, literally a force which each soul draws from the sun and entitizes, and which becomes a reliable helper towards the higher development. But when passion dominates or is excused and its indulgence is argued away by reason, it creates an entitized evil angel or genius, Samael, which is always ready to give a plausible excuse or reason why black should be called white and evil good. Again, the Kabbalah tells us that man's personality is an image which is double, since it can reflect either Michael or Samael. In other words, man can choose which likeness shall be imprinted upon the sensitive plate of his individuality. Once the choice is made, it is like a sensitized photographic plate. The more it is exposed to the light of sun, i.e. the higher we climb, the more intense the image. This accounts for the fact that many persons have great spiritual unfoldment and charming manners, yet have deformed bodies or repulsive features. In some incarnation, they have permitted Samael to rule and find expression in their lives. Hence must bear his imprint until the rule of Michael can transmute it, or Michael can transmute it into his image. Hence the choice is, shall we let Michael or Samael rule our lives and make his imprint upon our bodies? Beauty is but skin deep is only a half-truth, for true beauty is an expression of soul development or the beauty of holiness. And remember, Tiferet means beauty. And then the angel Michael is, I can't stop thinking, this number being 101, and Samael is 131. They both imply that reflection in different ways, but the beauty of holiness, which will ultimately produce a symmetrical expression on all planes and in our bodies, beginning with the inner and most ethereal and gradually manifesting outwardly. For we could not imagine a Superman with a deformed body or repulsive visage. Those who today have beautiful bodies but evil minds are those who in the past have allowed Michael to rule, but who today are allowing the imprint of Samael to overlay that of Michael. In the Sefer Yetzirah, or Book of Creation, the 20th path is the intelligence of will, and is so called because it is the means of preparation of all and each created being, and by this intelligence the existence of the primordial wisdom becomes known. Well, and that's funny because 20 times 20, again, you know how Yod created the universe, 20 times 20 is 400, which is the universe card, or Tau, or the elements, and the cross of Malkuth. And I don't know, it's just, if you really look at the tarot, and especially, again, how Grant says, learn the Hebrew alphabet and their connections and stuff, you'll see how fractal all of it is. And that's why Kabbalah and quantum mechanics really connect. The abbreviation for quantum mechanics is obviously QM, and then Kabbalah is the same value. So, and I know a lot of people are like, people just like to throw the quantum word on there so that it sounds more official. And yeah, I get that, I see that, but some people do that. But if you do study both, and you realize quanta is really just quantity, and all these, quantifiable connections and qualifiable connections, then clearly there's something to it. And I just think it's funny, because again, I'm just some person in their bedroom, although my bedroom just happens to have every book I can, I would need to do this sort of thing, and, equipment and whatnot. So that's not really a bad thing. But I've been accused, you're just someone in your bedroom, well, where do you want me to be? In an office space, I guess? I mean, at least I try to get out. In the beginning of, the last video, I wanted to have some outside footage, because even in the videos, being in my room is constricting. But, what I was going to say is, even though, yeah, I am just some kid, basically, like, what would I have to offer? Well, I don't know. I personally think that without the integration of this knowledge, and again, what these keys unlock, there's going to be a bumpy road. I mean, whereas if with this knowledge, it's a lot easier to understand and to, like I said, this sort of practice, starting out with building a gematria database, decoding things, pretty much cataloging every bit of knowledge you have, which, again, is a point that I think the whole gematria database, that's one reason this whole thing will be ridiculed, and is that they just don't want people having tabulations of data like that, especially of occult and whatnot data. But if you do that and you practice it, you will end up being, like, again, being able to see this naturally, and it's all over the place. Like, but again, it's a sort of specialized, like, niche area of research and interest and whatnot. But again, it's not exclusive to Crowley or Kenneth Grant or the occult even, or the Kabbalah or Jews or Masons or Christians or Thelemites or whoever. It is a universal science applicable to pretty much anything, depending on, again, intention. And unfortunately, for the longest time, the intention behind a lot of this stuff has been to give just enough to get people interested, but not enough to really empower them, just enough to keep them contributing and begging, and and enough to. That's the thing. A lot of this stuff, I know this whole operation. I know the game, and like there's authors, there's researchers, there's people online who know a whole lot. Like they know about Kenneth Grant and Crowley, but they'll either completely leave them out and their contributions, while pretty much taking credit for some of their ideas, and then ridicule again other people, because again, it's a sort of way of conquering the playing field, so to speak. But what was I going to say? Basically, yeah, there's people who know about this stuff, but they only want to slowly dole it out, like little by little, to people. And to some extent, there's people who try to dumb things down a bit, in a way, I guess, to put it bluntly. I guess we all know that that's really what society is doing. Is I mean, for the most part, like, the media is pretty fucking anti-intellectual, while claiming, oh, we're on the we're the cutting edge of humanity and blah blah blah. But really, all of it's being used for entertainment and for a select few people at the top's benefit, not everybody's benefit. And as we all know, like, if everyone was able to be healthy and live long and prosperous, well, population would just cause all sorts of problems. And that's not why I'm not saying I'm pro population control, but I know the mechanics behind it, and that's pretty much why even the average person rationalizes some of these things. They're like, oh, well, if there was a cure for cancer available, that would cause an immense population, and which would have other problems. So basically, all these things, I know I get confusing. I tie it all up. It's all tied up in my mind. This is the problem of speaking to myself. I think a little more organized than I speak. When I speak, I'm trying to put something non-linear in a linear form. But basically, yeah, like, I could see the value or usefulness in kind of taking things slow and giving people a way of relating it, like with fiction and modern day whatever is going on, and movies and whatnot. And I try to do that to some extent, but at the same time, there's so much more. There's so, like, the books and like if you look at most books written and published today, and then you look at books from like the 1800s on the same subject, they're way more dense back then, way more footnotes, way, deeper or more verbose language, which isn't, something to brag about quite, so much as just, again, that the quality has deteriorated. And it's because, again, we're trying to pander to the lowest common denominator, or the average person, which diminishes a lot of things. Like, a lot is lost when you're trying to cater to the lower end of the rungs or whatever. And I guess, I know, again, like, there's goods and bads to all of that. That's necessary, but at the same time, I think a lot of it is done intentionally to keep people in an artificially, like, induced state of infantility or whatever, and dependence, and again, needing answers from someone else rather than having the wherewithal to find them themselves. And then, that's why I'm skeptical about superiors or whatever, is until, how do you have to have some definite signs of superiority. And whenever I went to the OTO, I just didn't get that impression at all. I was disappointed. And same with books. I mean, a lot of the books that I talk about and read and have gotten are disappointing in that sense, in the fact that, like, holy shit, I know more than this. Like, I mean, and that's not bragging. It's just saying, like, it's disheartening. It's sad that, someone who you look up to, you end up finding out is only, and that's with music, that's with anything. People aren't always as they seem. And so I guess the whole point of all this is that, I don't know, again, inspiration, motivation, you can probably do better. Hopefully, if anything, this causes people who know more and can do better to do better, and to, surpass, and to fill in the gaps, whatever I missed, whatever I forgot, where am I wrong. I don't expect, to be right 100%, but so far, most criticism I've gotten is really just, like, character attacks and, like, waste of time type stuff. Like, I mean, I can get, some people don't like Crowley, and he's got a bad rap. Most of it's his own doing. Most of it, though, has been drummed up in the last, like, 50 years with Hollywood and all this other crap, and you can't blame what's going on in Hollywood on Crowley and associate. People have their own problems. And then, again, like, with all this shit I see daily, and Crowley and 666 and stuff being attacked, like, 666 isn't the it's got some dark parts to it, but it also, again, is the number of the soul and the soul energy. So there's a reason it's kind of demonized, and you just have to look into it. And it's just like, what I was talking to someone about this, with the whole, in terms of the Black Iron Prison, and how it's odd that other people are talking about it right when we were, and that sort of happens. Like, things get in the air, it seems like, or in the noosphere. And the duality of the whole Black Iron Prison idea, and how the BIP, the initials, is 1111 or 111, and that's like the bars, and it's in jail, and lives and files, and it implies this sort of, like, containment or container. And that's, again, a chamber. That's what the Kabbalah of chambers are. And it's a chamber of data. But again, 111, like I said, that could be like a palace number or idea. All this stuff, it can be an inner palace, an inner temple, the temple within, or the kingdom of heaven within. And like Tracy Twyman, again, she was the one who was talking about the Black Iron Prison, but I don't know if I don't know. Like, I've listened to her for a while, and I'm very skeptical about some things. Like, there's no way. Well, first of all, she was on Freeman's channel a while back, and Freeman is another weird, dubious character who, in that, he mentions Crowley and Kenneth Grant, and even says, like, oh, I've got this huge library, I've been reading them for decades, and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, but then he goes on to say, oh, well, Kenneth Grant, the executor of Crowley, who took his work further, he gives all this insight into Crowley, but, and then he goes into feeds into all the negative accusations of Crowley and how all this stuff has been weaponized and perverted and used in its negative sense and stuff. And there's no way you can be that familiar with Crowley and Grant and their work and not be that, it's just brainwashing to me because he's literally giving what people want, basically, and saying, oh yeah, all this stuff is, mind control, and it's the 9/11 ritual, all that crap is not, it's not true. It's just not helping anything. If anything, it's further putting these fucked up thinking people in a further trance. We got the flat earth, we've got the Mandela effect. There's all these little niche ideas that people are looking to try and, I don't even know if there's some people, who've been duped into thinking these things, but then I think they're campaigns to get like dumb people to fall into these traps to discredit whole entire other subjects and information. But Tracy Twyman, she doesn't mention, like I said, she doesn't mention Kenneth Grant at all in Baphomet, which it's okay. But she kind of, also plays into this whole Crowley was a Satanist pedophile idea, at least loosely, with some of her interviews and stuff. Like, and I'm not saying, oh, we need a boy. I'm just saying, like, I'm skeptical about the way in which they present this information, keep so much other stuff back when there's no way they're not aware of the bigger issues and the bigger picture. And then because they know, oh, this will generate way more attention and controversy and drama, let's just stick with the negatives and the bullshit and the same old crap that every YouTube channel or YouTube video just about of Crowley says. And I don't know. It's just, and what I was going to say is the whole Black Iron Prison. Yeah, there is again a negative side to Malkuth and all of this, and the fact that there really is nothing wonderful and spectacular. There is no way of turning it around when it comes to what the Black Iron Prison is, which is the surveillance, digital surveillance of everything, where pretty much nothing will get out of that net. What am I just trying to say? Basically, that is what basically people are creating for themselves in clinging to this construct, this false construct, and these mental constructs, instead of, again, when realizing, you can create, again, it's intention, it's motivation, it's manifestation. And it just seems that's where people are at. That's what they need. That is the mirror they need to see for it to change. Because, you're not going to, you think you're going to have, I personally don't think there will ever be a utopia or Zion or heaven on earth or anything like that, other than through natural, nature, before we came in and bulldozed everything and, renamed the streets after the trees that were there. Like Michael Tessarian, I believe, said in that Architects of Control video, which go watch that if you have the time. Fuck. I don't think anyone has time to watch any of these videos in the first place, but at least they're there for whatever reason. But so yeah, like, there was a utopia, but we fucked it up. The Garden of Eden, before it was turned into the Farm of Eden, I took that idea from my friend too, so it's not my idea, but it came to mind. But yeah, that's basically the whole point. Is like it's the black iron prison because we are making it into that, and we're feeding it into that. Um, but and is there a way to go back? Can we stop it? Is it too late? Are the bars already? Is the gate already closed? Is the key already thrown away? I don't know. Maybe this is the key. Uh, I think that whole 111 thing as Aleph, the inner light and whatnot. And in a sense, that's why I just find it worth mentioning. I just see so much of this sort of like it's what's called a feedback loop. Basically, people are playing into this feedback loop. And then, it's just funny how much Crowley and people like me, if not me specifically, are demonized and said, "Oh, well, that's negative, and that's this and that and the other," and yet I'm the only one. You know, from my perspective, it's the complete opposite. And again, I still have patience and understanding for whatever group that I don't consider myself a part of because of just the limitations involved. Like I've been to a Christian church. What was it, last year? I went quite often, and I enjoyed it. And there were I kind of went there out of observation, and I felt like what is it, like an archaeologist watching like a tribe of Africans or something. That's just what I felt, and watching them do their faith, their prayer healing and whatnot. And I think that's probably, I saw the practical value in, I guess, some of what Christianity, because like I said, I've been to churches since I was a kid, but I went back again with a friend from work for a while, and it caused me to just see a lot of things, and I just realized how much Christians are very much a cult. They're like occultists in a lot of ways. They just don't realize it, and that's the dangerous part. Because again, true Satan and stuff is, Lucifer is symbolic of illumination, while Satan is symbolic of ignorance, or being unilluminated yet, like the stone, basically in darkness and being asleep, the waking state. And it's in that sense that that's what I mean by Christianity being more of the spirit of the Antichrist than even some so-called satanic groups or whatever. Again, if they're going to call themselves a satanic group, then they're probably just naive. The OTOs generally and Crowley are generally termed satanic. When if you actually read Crowley's work, he, I think, reached some of the more enlightening possibilities of the human mind, and that's after a lot of work, I'm sure. Like Crowley has had his ups and downs in his life, from what I can tell, but those ups were really up there. And I don't know. I'm just babbling at this point, rambling. I'm just thinking about how, again, Yod, the egg, the elements, the formulation and potentials and actuals, and I don't know. At least this is the first year of blog posts. The next is when it gets really like deep. Starts getting deeper. Actually, no, it's 2014. These ones are a little deeper. It started to really, like, I had certain visions and like experiences when I was writing these that I tried conveying in the form of a blog, but I realize it's almost impossible. But this is when they start getting more. Each one has like something new, or at least I try to incorporate something new. And then again, it's not till my most recent blog posts that I started really having like downloads of information daily, and I could barely even keep up with writing posts. And that was still just what I could fit into them, and I still have a whole database full of stuff, but then even other, like a list of things that need to be sorted out and formatted better. I don't know if I'm going to even keep writing blog posts or if I'll do a different format. That's why I've been doing these videos, is because going back over them and editing them and stuff, I'm remembering things, but I'm also seeing things I didn't see, and new information is kind of generating out of that, and deeper connections are being found. So again, there's so many reasons like why I feel like I need to do this. It's mainly for myself. It's for whoever else might get something from it, because I know someone will. I've even like taken my blog down, just thinking, oh, no one cares. I probably shouldn't even put it out there. It's just damaging the information itself. But then I have people messaging me saying, oh, what happened to your blog? I was reading it. And I'm like, oh, that's surprising. And what else? Yeah, I guess there's not much left to say about this post. I'll think of things later on, or when I'm editing it. I'm sure people don't want to hear my burps and my errors in speaking and whatnot. So, yeah, there's this video, and we'll move on to the next one.